Gentlemen, it's been a week. We've had time to digest, process, and now we're back. Graham and I are going to talk about the fantasy draft. We're going to talk about uh, kind of overall draft strategy we each had going into the draft. We're going to talk about players we may have been targeting going into draft. We're going to look at the draft itself, do some round analysis, and then finally, we're going to look at everybody's team and make some judgments. Graham, how are you, brother?
I'm good. I'm in DC, sitting outside my gym. Got a full cup of coffee I already drank. I got a full battery life. I'm ready to go.
Nice, man. I'm ready to rock. I'm pretty excited as I look at our draft. I told you a little bit before we started recording. I thought it was first couple of rounds were pretty solid, man. When I was prepping for it, I had some thoughts to myself. And one thing that I noticed in terms of my overall draft strategy, and I'll ask you what yours was, but when I went into the draft, I felt like by the time the second round ends, I wanted to have one of the top tier running backs because what scared me about this year and this draft was that after Eckler, McCaffrey, Bijan, Barkley, Chubb, and Henry, and the other good running backs were keepers like Pollard. But after those guys, I saw a steep drop off where there was a lot of question marks with running backs. That's not to say there aren't going to be like several that blow up this year, but for me, as I looked at the first couple rounds, after those guys, I didn't know what running back to pick. So in my mind, when I came through those first two rounds, I was scared to go receiver because I felt like if I missed one of those top guys, I was going to have a weakness all season long. So that was kind of my goal. So when I hit the first round and I got Eckler, I knew I was going to pick a running back. I almost picked Bijan. I just wanted one of those top guys. Then I felt comfortable, going receiver, maybe even second, third, and fourth round. But I had to get one of those top guys. How did you feel going into the draft? What were your kind of main draft priorities?
Well, I was in a similar boat. I was thinking, I've got to I want to get a running back because I just know that a couple of things. A top running back gets all the carries, right? There's a lot of situations where there's like a J.K. Dobbins, but what's going to happen with him, with everything else? That situation, Lamar leads the team in rushing every year. So like I wanted the running back one, and I felt there were so many receivers that you could always get a guy. And on top of that, I had my eyes on a couple of these second, third year receivers that I think most people were focusing on. I mean, look, it's easy to say Justin Jefferson. Yeah, of course, number one pick. That's the easiest thing in the whole world to do. But it's like, who's next guy? Do you take a Waddle or a Keenan Allen, which we'll talk about? Like that's these things are like
Yeah.
those players are the same player in so many different ways. One's a wide receiver one, but
Yep.
older. One's a wide receiver two, but faster. So all these those, I felt like there was more. The wide receiver pool was bigger, and I also just thought that we've been focusing so much on wide receivers, a running back has been devalued. So I felt like it was a great time to
Yeah.
get a couple of good running backs. So yeah, that's
Yeah. What scared me about it was, yeah, I feel the same way. I mean, I agree with that. What scared me about it was that the league has changed so much in the past 5 years with this push towards passing and a push towards a running back by committee approach because, the top tier running backs aren't getting paid anymore. Coaches seem like they'd rather just have two or three guys they're going to rotate in and out, which leaves maybe 10 NFL programs, 10 teams that have like a legit running back one like we used to see 20 years ago that carry, that catch, that are in for 80 to 90% of the carries. You can't find that much anymore. And so those guys are dwindling. And I really wanted to try to get one of those guys because I think they're special to have on your roster. And if you don't have it and you're dealing with a RBBC for both your running back spots, it gets really tentative, man. So yeah, I'm with you. I agree with everything you said. And it's just interesting how the running back position is kind of getting watered down with all these running back by committees, and then the receiver pool so deep. It goes on for 9 rounds almost. You could get a legit receiver in round 9 if you pick the right guy potentially. So, yeah, that's interesting. Who was there anyone on your mind as you went into the draft, whether you through your research or through watching preseason? Or the guys coming out of college. Were there any guys that you were thinking to yourself, I'd really love to have this dude on my team. I think this guy's going to blow up. I think I can get him in the later rounds. Like, was there anyone you were targeting?
Yeah, for sure. So, again, second, third year receivers. I had it was an option keeper for me, but um, Traylon Burks. There's your number 2 draft pick. Um, Traylon Burks.
Yep.
He's very talented. Weird situation. Um, this might be the right time, but Kyle Pitts, I felt went
Yeah.
from overrated, underrated, and now was maybe properly rated. I think might be how I looked at it.
Yeah.
Um, and then my super duper sleeper, which I can't believe no one got this guy, but KJ Osborne, who just had a great last 3-4 weeks playoffs with the Minnesota Vikings.
He did.
Thielen's gone, and Minnesota, yeah, they drafted a wide receiver, but last time I checked, rookie wide receivers not named Randy Moss or Justin Jefferson suck, right? So I now have the legitimate 2 receiver in a passing offense with Kirk Cousins, who's only 35. He's good. I feel like
Right.
I've got a super sleeper. I'm surprised I got him that late, but
Yeah. You got him in what round? It was like round 18 or
final round,
something. Really.
21st round,
Oh,
last
really?
pick.
Wow.
So,
Yeah. What did you like? Okay, so I get that. I mean, obviously, I picked up Addison, that rookie that they drafted to replace Thielen, because I feel like maybe. But I can totally see the logic behind Osborne. I can see the logic behind Pitts, because now we're getting him at value, and he's such a talent. He's got to bounce back. There's got to be some positive regression with Pitts this year. What did you like about Burks? Was it that he's got someone opposite him that can take some of the pressure away now that they brought in that guy, DeAndre Hopkins? Like, what drew you to Burks?
yeah, so I think that, I mean, for that it was like second year receiver. He's a big guy. I like bigger guys. I think he's like 6'2", 6'3". He's a big receiver. So I feel like those guys
Yeah.
have a tendency to catch more than their share of balls than a 5'10" guy like a Marquise Brown, right? So I like bigger guys like that.
Yeah.
And Hopkins is more the threat than he is the reality. He's 31 years old. He's several years away from being, the Nuck Hopkins in Houston. And I feel that, they're still a great running team. So safeties push up. He knows the offense. Maybe he could do something. But also just, historically, second year, third year receivers do well, right? They're just the route combination, the playbook is so difficult for these guys. I mean, we saw with it. We saw if you watch quarterback, the plays that these guys have to call. It's no wonder. I mean, you call a play 59 X whatever, and you have to figure that out and know what to do. I get where these guys second, third year they take off. What about you?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's valid. So my thought coming in was a little different than yours, and maybe it's more of a risk, but I feel like we are coming into an era where it's not as hard for rookie receivers, or at least lately they've been showing up more in the Jamar Chases, in the Waddles, even last year with Garrett Wilson and Olave. And I felt like there was a trend of rookie receivers who were more NFL ready than we have seen really like 10 years ago, where it was kind of a once in a while type thing. So I had all those guys in my mind, and I thought to myself, if I can get down, I don't have 2 picks, and I don't have a pick in round 3, I don't have a pick in round 5. If I can fill out my wide receiver room with some of these pro ready ish rookies, I'll be happy. Because I didn't have those early picks, so I knew I had to kind of scramble a little bit, and it made me decide between some, rookies or some kind of aged veterans with a little bit of a higher floor, lower ceiling. And when I draft, I always look for guys with ceiling as opposed to floor. Like, I don't like safe drafts. If my team craps the bed and I come in last place, whatever, but I'm going for ceiling in the draft. And so there was some receivers that I had followed through preseason and looking at them through the draft process that I felt like were potentially pro ready, and those were guys that I picked, like Jordan Addison in Minnesota, who I thought, like, I agree with you. I think Kirk Cousins is like a lock for 4,000 yards passing per year. I like the guy.
That guy to Seattle, that rookie.
Yeah, I got the guy in Seattle, Smith and
Flowers.
Jigba, who broke his wrist, but hopefully he'll be back by like week 2.
Yeah.
And then, the kid in Baltimore, Flowers. So
Yep.
guys that I just felt were really flashing in the preseason that look pro ready. And look, I might hit on 1 out of 3 of them, and I'll know that after the first month probably.
No,
But
you
if I hit
won't.
on 1 out of 3 of them,
No, you won't. Patience.
why?
Patience.
Why you think it'll be later in the season?
Yeah, these rookies. I feel like just me speaking to you. Your
Yeah,
tendency sometimes is to give up on guys too early. So I would say to you, although I shouldn't say this to you, give him 6 weeks, give him 8 weeks, give him time to,
yeah,
because in college they play 10 games, right? So they're gonna hit a rookie wall, and then they're gonna like get over that, right? So I would say some of
yeah.
these rookies have a little patience because these guys just don't play a lot in college, and it's a lot of learning, a lot of physical stuff. Give them some time.
Yeah, it's easy to say now, but when you're in week 4 and you're like 1 and 3, and then you're 1 and 4, you start to hit the oh shit button. You know what I mean? But you're right. I mean, sometimes you got to try to hang on as long as you possibly can because oftentimes the second half of the season is when they really start flashing and coming into their own. And I kind of did that with my running backs a little bit too, in Charbonnet, and I also picked up the running back after the draft for New Orleans, who's a rookie, and because I know that Kamara is going to be suspended for the first 3 weeks, so let's see what happens there. So yeah, my team's built, with some risk, but I feel like it's high ceiling risk, and that was kind of my goal because I didn't have round pick, a pick in round 3 and round 5, so I felt like I had to kind of go for rookie ceilings later in the draft. Um, so yeah, I was targeting some rookies there, and that was kind of my goal. So what do you want to do, man? You want to check out kind of the first several rounds and see what our thoughts were as we look at it?
Yeah, I think that looking at the rounds, you want to go team by team, or you want to just go by round? How do you want to do this?
Let, let's go round by round. We'll probably go pretty quickly through the first couple rounds because I thought it was pretty standard. At rounds 3, 4, 5 got a little bit more interesting, but let's look at it by round and see what we see.
All right, let me share my screen here so the viewers at home can see what we're looking at here. I'll make sure that turn off all the nudie stuff to look at. All right, you see that? Okay.
Yeah,
So there's rounds 1 through 3. Um, by the way, great job on the combine. That was great. That was a
that
lot
was
of
fun,
fun.
man.
That was fun to see. At least you have some control in the option, and that's just a jar you pick from that's been premeditated by 13 different guys who've done it.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. It was fun to see, and there was some luck involved. I mean, sometimes the bounce of the ball or the bounce of the quarter was going to go your way. Sometimes it wasn't. So it was fun. It was a good random way to do it. Um, and Lenny crawling up the steps at the end was
Oh, that
just
great.
as classic.
Right.
Um, all right, so let's check out round 1. I think everyone knew. I mean, people round 1 was almost so set in people's minds that they were just putting their picks up on the board before it was even their turn. If you remember, we kind of
Yeah.
started early. I mean, Hammond obviously was going to go Justin Jefferson. He put that up right away, and then our draft is a little different with our keepers because it impacts a little bit uh, what happens in the first couple rounds. But I think, e.g., going Travis Kelsey at the second pick, if you just look at it, you don't know about our keepers, it seems really early. But for him, with a keeper like Mahomes, I thought it was completely normal. I think Kelsey was going around 6 or 7 in most drafts. If you've already got Mahomes on your team, Kelsey seems like a no brainer there. What did you think about that?
Yeah, I thought it was funny because I looking at it I was like, that's a great pick, and I think that two things. I think I thought about like, what is a reach? When someone said, "Oh, it's a reach," to
Right.
me, to me, a reach is when you get a guy that you could have had later, but
Right.
Kelsey wasn't going to be around later. So to me, that's not a reach. The reach is if
Yep.
a reach would have been Kyle Pitts. That's a reach. First round, second round pick, that would have been a reach. To me, that's a reach. But Travis Kelsey wasn't going to make it through the first round. And if you have the quarterback, like you said, it makes all the sense in the world because now he can double dip on some of those days. So that's why I look at this. I was like, that's a great pick because, he's not going to go McCaffrey because I feel like that running back can come later, like that. And he ended up getting he went receiver next, But the point is, like, I think that was a great pick for him because of the fact that he had Mahomes.
Yep. Yeah, I think it made sense. And then when I came up at the third pick, I had three guys in mind. I had Eckler, Tyreek Hill, and Bijan Robinson. I wanted Bijan just because I find him interesting. I find the Atlanta offense fascinating with how well they run. They have one of the best offensive lines in the league. I think Bijan um, could be a star this year. The only hesitation I had was they also have they had 1,000-yard rookie rusher last year and Tyler Algier. That makes me a little bit nervous about Bijan. I don't know how that's going to play out. I think they're going to split some time. I don't know how much. So that was a question mark for me, which is why I didn't end up going there at 3. Um, and then the only other person I would have picked at 3 was Tyreek Hill. Again, I like ceiling. Um, Christian McCaffrey, I had him last year. He's great, but there's a lot of targets there. It's not really it's a very efficient offense, but it's not a high powered offense, if that makes sense. So Christian, he shares time with another running back. Um, they don't pass a ton, but they pass it very efficiently. I don't know. His ceiling was a little lower than you would expect from Christian McCaffrey, and I experienced that firsthand last year. So I wasn't that excited about him. And Cooper Kupp made me nervous with the injuries. And so those were really, I decided I've already got Herbert as my keeper. Let's
Yeah.
double it up. Let's go Eckler. So that's how I got there.
And I think looking at that, I think it's the right choice because I feel like on those days where Eckler gets, he gets a couple throws, that's double points for you. I think same thing. Like McCaffrey and Tyreek Hill, Cooper Kupp, those guys don't necessarily give you any like add-on stuff for your team. So I think it makes
Right.
sense.
Yep.
And then the next pick is the easiest pick in the whole draft. A San Francisco guy getting a
Yeah.
San Francisco guy, right? So
Yep.
I like McCaffrey. That was easy. That was, I think, the first out of 3 of the first 4 picks were like made a lot of sense. They almost pick him out. Yours was the big question mark, but you went the way I think you went. And then next pick came down to I think Steamers was like Tyreek Hill or Cooper Kupp. I think that was I think Cooper Kupp has a better quarterback for the year. I think
Right.
Tyreek Hill has better. Like Tyreek Hill did great no matter who threw him the ball last year. So that's the argument for Tyreek Hill. But Cooper Kupp he's just such a PPR beast, right?
Yeah, he's the focus of that offense. I think based on the preseason game that happened yesterday with the Rams, where they lost like 28-0. I think they're going to be a bad team this year. Quite frankly, that's my guess. But I think Cooper Kupp's going to be kind of the only offensive option there, and Stafford loves him. So I mean, I think it's totally worthy of a first-round pick. Through the first 8 weeks last year, he was leading the league in terms of receiver points. So I think it's probably safe. Again, the lingering injury, he is getting older. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I think he probably has another good season left in him. I think it's totally worth a number 6 pick in the first round by Sarge. I love the Tyreek Hill pick. Like you said, it doesn't matter who's throwing to him. He's just a ninja, man. And then we got Crackback Block at 7.
Yeah, that was so I had Saquon last year, and I feel like I got him at the right time, the right situation. I don't know that a second year was going to work, and I couldn't, a younger running back who's fresh in a system that's great. I couldn't not take Bijan.
Yeah.
I was looking at him the whole time. And like AJ Brown, I was like, that Philadelphia offense is too many weapons, even though, he's
Too many.
like, I like I like limited weapons. And then, looking down the road, like who else? I had Diggs already, and I like Diggs, but there were so many times where Diggs will just give me 8 and 90 and nothing because Buffalo would be up by 20 points.
Yep.
And Stephon be in the third quarter chilling out. And I was like, well, I need more from this number 1 pick. I feel like if Atlanta's winning, they're going to run the ball. If Atlanta's losing, they're going to run the ball. Right. So that's how I look at it.
Yeah, I love the Bijan pick. He was a guy that I was coveting a little bit. I had no idea whether I'd have a chance to get him because we had no idea what the draft order was until right before we started. So it was an interesting way to kind of begin the draft. I like AJ Brown at the end of the second round, just like last year. Like I almost got him. I ended up with T Higgins at like the last pick of the second round. I like AJ Brown in the second round. I don't love him in the first round. I think there's just too much competition on that team. But that's fine. It's going to work out fine. He's a great player. He's going to put up points for Roach consistently. But I, yeah, I did not want to have to make the decision Roach had there. I'm glad that he made it. He went with AJ. That's fine. Um, but if I was Lenny and I told him this in the car ride, I would have done exactly what he did because he would have had the turn. And I think personally, this is my guess, that Nick Chubb is going to have a career year this year. I think their team's going to be much improved. I think Deshaun Watson, despite all his problems, is really going to lift up that team offensively in a lot of ways just by his ability to run. I think it's going to open things up for Chubb. I think Chubb is going to go off. And then to have Diggs in round two
Yeah,
at the
I look at
turn,
that, and that
Diggs
could be
and
it.
Chubb,
Could
I
have
thought
been big and
it could have
Chubb.
been
Yeah. So
totally, totally. But I thought those were two. I think that's exactly what I would have done if I were Lenny. I thought that was very, very savvy. I think that he's going to get consistent points at both those positions with both those guys.
I agree. I feel like early on we're going to see Chubb do well because the quarterback situation is still it's new again, right? It's with
Yep,
Boston
yep,
there, they need to hand that ball off a lot. And then usually late in the season, it's cold as shit in Cleveland. What do? You run the ball. So I feel like he's going to do well. I feel like
yep.
Lenny's going to have a good opening season and a good end of the season with Chubb. The middle of the year, who knows? But I feel like that gives them a good situation.
Yeah,
Um, and looking at Rev Roach, this is we're still only one gummy into the day. So he went Derrick Henry. Um, he had a wide receiver, so he wanted to go running back. I see that. I feel like we all would have maybe passed on Henry till later. I don't know. That's a long time for him to wait. I mean, it's he would have missed on Henry for sure, but could he have
yep.
been better off with Amon-Ra St. Brown, uh, Devontae? I mean, he already has AJ Brown, can't go Devontae Smith. I mean, it's kind of like it's limited in that selection. It's Henry, Devontae Adams, but new quarterback in Vegas. You get Mixon, who's the third or fourth option inside Cincinnati. I mean, Henry's the number
Yeah.
one option, but he's also older, right? I mean, it's
Yeah, you know what I would have considered there if I was Roach and I really wanted a running back at that spot, and maybe it would have been a little bit of a reach. I like running backs that do a lot of catching, that are multifaceted in that way. And I would have considered Ramondre Stevenson there. And I know it probably would have been a little bit earlier, but he's the full package to me at running back. And Harris is now gone out of New England. I know they signed Zeke late in the season that'll maybe steal some kind of goal line carries away, but I like Ramondre's ability to catch the ball. He's a very smooth catcher, and that would have probably tempted me if I had to take a running back there. I really would have strongly considered Ramondre, or I would have gone receiver. Derek scares me. It's got to end at some point. I've been saying this for like 2 or 3 years with him. He keeps proving me wrong. Um, and hey, he is the king, but we'll see if he's got another year left in him.
yeah, and that's just with the receiving core of Hopkins and Treylon Burks, they don't really scare anybody. When they had AJ Brown, they could scare people. So
Yep.
that takes things a little bit. Which leads into this is again Craig looking at Devontae Adams.
Yeah.
Top receiver, but he's got Garoppolo. That's the quarterback that it's way different when it was Rodgers or Carr. Carr could get the ball, but
Yep. Yep.
um,
Garoppolo's he's very polarizing, isn't he? Like, in some ways, Garoppolo, when he's healthy, has had a lot of success. He's been to a Super Bowl. He trained under Brady in New England. Like, he's had a lot of success. He's a good quarterback, but a lot of people don't like him. They think he's kind of just an average guy. So it's going to be interesting to see what he can do in Vegas if he's healthy. And if he's as good as some people say, Devontae's going to be fine. Devontae's maybe the most talented receiver, all-around receiver in the league still. I mean, I still think he's at the edge of his prime. And I think that's exactly where he should have gone. I think it was a good pick by Craig. I don't have any critique about that specific pick.
the next one, Joe Mixon. This is the one. Again, he's the number one running back, but he's like the fourth option. And Joe Burrows also runs the ball in the end zone. Burrows had 5 touchdowns last year.
Yep.
That's kind of what happens when you have younger quarterbacks. They like to run it in. So that's 5 touchdowns that Mixon missed out on, or whatever. So I think that again, would Ramondre Stevenson been a better pick there, where he's
right
offense, or Ski already having Tyreek Hill, does he go out and get another running wide receiver and like double up on that receiver part?
Right.
I do think he had
Um,
a receiver in his keeper, so that's the part that might have affected him.
yeah. I think my argument for Mixon this year is that last year was kind of weird for him. He had that one game where he had 5 touchdowns, and the rest of the year he didn't do much. But he was dealing with some potential criminal charges, I think, throughout the year that were really kind of stressing him out. And the other thing I'll say about Mixon, if he does have a bounce back year, he's on a high powered offense. They got rid of his competition. They didn't sign anyone. They didn't draft anyone. They didn't sign anyone to compete with carries for him because they got rid of what's his name to Denver, right?
You're right.
P Ryan is in Denver, I believe,
Yeah.
And is going to get a lot of carries the first month. But P Ryan's gone. Who else? There's no one there to compete with Mixon, so he could be a sneaky great pick. We'll see how he plays out. If this is going to be a bounce back year, everything's lined up for him to get a ton of carries.
Yeah. So this is the last player besides the run-on receivers. So this is Josh Allen, which I think highlights. That's a great pickup. It's the number 2 quarterback, maybe number 1 quarterback, because he does run. I think it's a great pick for him. He ends up with McCaffrey and Allen. I think that's a great 1-2 punch for him this year. Those guys, I like that pick for him. But then we go into a run of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of the next 9 picks are wide receivers.
Yeah.
Which is crazy, right? Amon-Ra St. Brown, who I think has the highest ceiling of everybody. He's got the best quarterback situation. He's in a great high-powered offense. Detroit looks good. Everyone's high on Detroit this year. And he's the number 1 receiver there. And he's got, so I've got the stats. He's got like the most 20-yard catches in the first 3 years over like any player in history besides like Jerry Rice or something stupid like that. So
and with Williams being suspended for gambling, he's really, if you look at the depth at receiver on that team behind Amon-Ra, there's not a whole lot there. A bunch of just average dudes. So he's going to get a lot of looks, man. And then you have this grouping here in the second round: Amon-Ra, Olave, Waddle, Higgins, Devontae. That group right there, on all of the expert, quote unquote expert drafts that I looked at, they were all in that group. I mean, our guys, our friends in this league, we're just well read on this stuff. That's exactly, I think, how any expert draft you would have looked at would have finished the second round, with those guys all bunched together. Who knows who's going to have the best year out of those 5 guys? It's really close.
Yeah, I think that, if you look at Amon-Ra St. Brown, Olave, Waddle, Devontae Smith, and Christian Watson, those are all second, third year players. I think T. Higgins is maybe a 4th or 5th year player.
Yeah.
Keenan Allen is the oldest of that little bunch in that little run. But I mean, if you look at those stats end of the year, I'm willing to bet they're all within 10% of each other, unless obviously without injury. But I like all of them in that position, and had you gone somewhere else, would have been great. And this is
my only oh, go ahead.
I'll say highlight. That's my pick. No, that's not my pick. Whose pick is that? That's my pick that I think he took. Second round, right? Is that my pick?
Yeah. Yep.
Or was my pick? No, my pick was Mixon. Mixon would have been my pick. High Life, I think, is your pick. No. High Life is Starge's pick. Yeah, I think High Life.
I don't remember how he got that.
That would have been Starge's pick, and Joe Mixon would have been my pick. So.
Yeah, it was a luxury for Eric to be able to draft Josh Allen, because I don't know that he would have done that had he not had some extra picks in that round. But to be able to get Josh Allen and just finish that off, get the best, arguably the best quarterback in the league, and still get some talent at the other skill positions was a nice luxury for him. And, obviously he gets Olave and Josh Allen in round 2, which is great.
And we look around.
Round
we talked about.
Well, let me say something real quick. When round 3 started and Hammy picked Keenan Allen, that was the first moment in the draft where I thought to myself that I thought it was too early. I thought the ceiling is way too low for Keenan Allen. His floor is like fine. He's a possession PPR machine when healthy, but he's aging out, man. Like to me, if I had that pick, I totally would have gone in a different direction. Because he's been consistently injured for half the season the past couple of years. I don't like that, man. He's old now. I totally would have gone Christian Watson or I don't know, even DK. When I looked at Keenan Allen's average draft position across the country, it's around he's around the 21st wide receiver taken generally. And if you consider our keepers, he's in that range at this pick. But I don't know, man. I feel like there's so much more of a ceiling with Watson and some other receivers. Um, I didn't love it at the beginning of round three. What did you think?
I mean, I thought so too, especially thinking about where Hambo and Howdy had Justin Jefferson, Devontae Smith. His keeper was Jamar Chase. So he's really drafting a bench player here. And I feel like, well, if
Yeah,
you're a bench player, get super high upside. Who was on who has crazy upside, or like Christian Watson,
Ramondre.
um, Jameer Gibbs. I mean, I think there's players even taking Jonathan Taylor wouldn't have been crazy in the sense that like he already has three receivers and a quarterback.
Yep,
Maybe Travis Etienne, Ramondre, Aaron
yeah,
Jones. I feel like there was something he could have. He already had three receivers. I feel
yep.
like that was an unnecessary luxury.
Yeah, I agree. He picked a bench guy at the in his third pick, or at the best, a wide receiver flex in his. And really, I mean, you could have gotten some really more upside at either running back or receiver there with other guys. So that's kind of how I felt when I looked at it. I didn't mind that he picked him. Like the more guys that are getting picked that I don't like, I'm happy during the draft.
Yeah,
But I thought to myself, that's not where I would have gone with that pick.
yeah,
But
yeah,
we'll see how it plays out. He could have a great year. I mean,
yeah,
what do we know at this point? But I just think he's an injury risk waiting to happen.
right. Yeah, Christian Watson we talked about. I think you look at then Travis Etienne, who all his is highlight going back to back. Etienne and Andrews or Hopkins. I think Etienne's going to have a great year, great offense. He's healthy. He's a year plus removed away from his injury. Um, all the reports out of Jacksonville. Since I'm a Florida guy, I know all the reports coming out,
Yeah.
and it sounds like he's really healthy and good. Happy with. I think that's great for him. The Hopkins pick, I'm not big on. I feel like that is a pick looking at his team, he has McCaffrey, he has Olave, he has Josh Allen, he now has Watson. I feel like that receiver. I mean, could that have who's going to have a better difference, T.J. Hawkinson or Hopkins? Hopkins, I feel like is the middle of the road, or Hawkinson could be the number 3 or number 2 tight end for the whole entire year. And that's such a limited space. Maybe he could have gone there instead,
Yeah.
especially
Yeah.
with that bonus pick.
I agree. I don't like the Hopkins pick. There's way too many question marks there for me. I think he could have gone tight end at Hawkinson or Kittle. Obviously, Ski kept Andrews, so that wasn't an option. But he could have gone I keep focusing on Ramondre. I really think Ramondre could potentially have a really nice season. And even the Travis Etienne, I know he's healthy, but what I'm also hearing about him is that he's not the most natural catcher they thought he was. He's an explosive running back. They draft Tank Bigsby early, fairly early in the draft, and he's getting a lot of pub. And I think it's going to be a timeshare there more than it was last year. They're raving about this Tank Bigsby guy, who was drafted late in round 15 by Ski, which I thought Ski had some nice savvy late round pickups. Ski picked up Tank Bigsby. He got Fields in round 17. He got Rashad Penny in round 18. He got just a lot of guys that I thought were really valuable picks later in the round. I thought Ski did a great job in those late rounds. But yeah, the Tank Bigsby problem makes me a little bit nervous for ETN. But who knows? It could be preseason hype, but I think he's going to eat into Travis Etienne's catches and carries. We'll see how
Yeah,
it plays out.
yeah. We'll just touch base with that with the Ski thing. I thought Justin Fields was the right place, wrong team, because Ski already has Lamar Jackson.
Right.
You drafting the same thing. Now, if you were the Ravens and you could pick up Justin Fields as your backup, that's great. But I
Yeah.
feel like at that pick, and we can look whenever that pick was, I feel like at that pick he should have gone more maybe traditional quarterback or. But I mean, I don't know. That's just how I would look at this. Is like who else was there at that pick. He drafted.
It's just that, I read some of these like fantasy kind of experts, and they're going on and on about how this is going to be Fields' year, and he may be even a top 5 quarterback because of his running if he can get his throwing together now that he has DJ Moore. And it just might be that Fields. I don't believe it's going to happen, but to get him in round 17, it's pretty nice.
Yeah, but would you rather have him, Kenny Pickett, or Jordan Love?
If I already had a quarterback, then probably Kenny Pickett.
Right. So that's the thing I look at. Like, could he have had a different quarterback? Even Dak Prescott, who everyone says was down. I don't know if Dak was a keeper. I don't think he was. But even having Dak at a top offense, if he has a good year, it kind of balances that out a little bit. Lamar gets hurt, but maybe just Ski just wants that running quarterback, and he's going to ride or die.
Yeah.
All right, so then Ski, there he is. He skied Mark Andrews. Good pick there, I think, for him. He had Joe Mixon. He's got Tyreek Hill. It's a good pick. Ramondre, I think we predicted this in the draft podcast earlier. Sargent is a names guy. He loves certain names.
We thought he was going to keep him because of the name, but he ended up drafting him.
Yeah, but I mean, I think we just knew that stars love saying certain names, and I knew he was going to take Ramondre Stevenson. I just knew he was going to take. Then for me, I went DK Metcalf. For me, I was looking at their other receivers. I didn't like. I don't like Kittle in a sense. I feel like Kittle is super talented, but on offense, he gets spread around.
Yep.
I like Geno Smith. He throws the ball a lot. DK Metcalf is there. He's a big receiver again. And kind of looking at a line, I was like, Christian Kirk I liked, but again, same thing. Jacksonville had too many options. Amari Cooper, I don't like I don't like Cleveland early on. And I was like, that's where I wanted to go. I was like, DK, I just felt like
big. No, I like it. I think it's good value there, and I think he's got a high ceiling. And when he goes off, he really goes off, man. So I think that was a smart pick. I think Creaton getting Hawkinson, I think he's a top 5 tight end. And up through round 3, I thought Creaton did a good job with his picks. Just to throw a little, I thought Saquon in round 1 was solid. I thought Devontae was solid. I thought Hawkinson was solid. I think he's doing a good job kind of lining up strength at his different positions. I think, as opposed to the later rounds where Creaton was like getting a little confused sitting next to Roach, and I don't know what was going on that couch over there. It was like a black hole of confusion. But in the beginning phases, I thought Creaton was on point, making solid choices.
Yeah, no, for sure. I do have some notes on when we get the team analysis. Where Roach went Aaron Jones, and then Lenny went. Lenny, you can't look at Lenny's pick unless it's a back-to-back pick, and since he sees on a turn, he went Middle Lawrence. We thought he should have kept Lawrence when he had him, but he got Lawrence in the 4th. But I think it's fine. At the end of the day,
yeah, I do too.
Yep.
And Lenny's doing that smart thing I always kind of shoot for, or I used to shoot for a lot more. He's hit different positions with his first 4 picks. He's trying to get that balance going, and I think he's done a good job in that way.
Yep. Yeah. So let's. What's next? Team analysis. Are we looking at the teams now, kind of overall?
Yeah, let's check it out.
Let's start with. I'm gonna start with the Maturowski here. Where's he at? Cleveland Steamers, right there in the middle. So Hill, Mixon, Amon-Ra, St. Brown, Mark Andrews, Najee Harris, Lamar Jackson. Looking at his team right here in the middle, I feel like, look, he's got 2 good receivers, Tyreek Hill, Amon-Ra. He's got Lamar Jackson, who's got paid. He's happy. He's got Andrews. He's got the combo. Running backs, Najee Harris, Joe Mixon. The only part with that I don't like is they're both in the same division. And that's a really tough defense division. I think that's the only part I look at his picks. And I do hear word out of Pittsburgh that Najee Harris isn't. He's the least talent. He's not as talented as the other guy they have there. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, Jalen Warren, I think, is his backup. He's much more
Yeah, yeah.
explosive. I think Najee's a boring running back. I think he completely lacks efficiency and explosiveness, and it will not shock me. It will not shock me, especially if ETN gets hurt with some sort of like weird leg toe thing. Um, if he's starting Tank Bigsby over Najee Harris pretty quickly in the season, that's just my guess. And so I don't love his running backs necessarily, but what I do like, and I said this earlier about Ski, I like some of his later picks. I like Brandon Cooks. I thought in round 10 was
Yep.
very savvy. I think he's going to be a good underrated receiver in Dallas.
Alexander
I
Madison,
like the
running back.
Tank Bigsby was great in round 15. And I still think that he got a lot of value in Justin Fields, even though he got kind of a duplicative quarterback. But it's nice to have a second one in case one goes down. So I thought he did a pretty good job filling out his roster, even though I don't love his running back situation as much as the rest of his team.
Sure. That takes us into Creaton, the Craig. Let's find where he is at. He is. Hold on, here we go. So Saquon, Devontae, T.J. Hawkinson, Amari Cooper, Chris Godwin, James Conner, Rashad White. I think that's 2 out of his 7 picks are in Tampa Bay, which isn't. I don't like that offense at all. So
yeah,
it's tough there.
Yep.
I mean, overall, I do think that from a standpoint of looking at running back, receiver, tight end, receiver, running back. I like, and he went with Brees Hall, so he's got some upside later.
Yes,
I do like that for sure. Pittman, we'll see what Pittman does. Yeah, I mean, look, and he got Pickett, and I think his biggest thing was he had Jalen Hurts. I think that for him, that makes
that's huge.
All the better when he gets to keep Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, I think Jalen Hurts is the kind of player that's going to just win you 2 more games than maybe you deserve throughout the season, just on his performances alone. Even if the rest of your team craps out, I think Jalen Hurts is going to carry him to victory just on his measure of talent. I think Creaton did a good job anchoring all his positions with good players in terms of running back, receiver, tight end. We talked about this a lot last year. One of our conclusions at drafting was pick guys on good offenses is really the way to go. And I thought that he missed the ball there a little bit with the Tampa Bay, Arizona picks. One of the guys on my do not ever draft list was James Conner, because I think their team is going to be absolutely miserable this year. I don't think Tampa Bay is going to be very good. And we know Chris Godwin's talented, but I think they're just going to struggle on offense. And despite the talent, man, if your offense is that bad, it's hard to thrive. It's hard to have much of a ceiling. And so some of his depth I don't love, but I do think he's got a solid team with solid anchors at different positions.
Yeah, no, for sure. So let's move on to Hambone. Obviously, his stacked. We talked already about his stacked running, his stacked receivers. Where's he at? Jefferson, Devontae Smith, Keenan Allen, Jamar Chase, Rondell Moore in Arizona, Cortland Sutton in Denver. I definitely feel like he's going to want to make a trade at some point. I can see a wide receiver when someone else is looking for a receiver. I can see him making that trade.
He's got the best. He's got the best receiving core probably out of anyone. And the other thing I'll say is that Sutton is going to turn out to be a very lucky, savvy pick because every other receiver on that team is injured right now. He's like the only receiver left standing. They do have a rookie named Marvin Mims, who is floating out on the waiver wire, who's the only other healthy receiver, and is a pretty talented kid. So I wouldn't be surprised if Mims gets picked up second week or so, because I think he's going to catch some balls because right now Sutton's the only veteran receiver they have that's healthy. So I think that could pan out to probably be a nice pick for Hammy.
Yeah, no, for sure. I like his overall thing. I will say this. I tried to talk him off of J.K. Dobbins. I was like, I don't know. J.K. Dobbins looks. That's a lot of injuries. I was trying to talk him out of it and psych him out, but he wouldn't fall for that shit, and he drafted him.
Yeah, J.K. Dobbins. He's got some question marks, but he could very possibly have a great season. I think
Baltimore's going to have 5.7 yards a carry in his career.
The
So
kid can that kid can run, man, and if he's healthy and his mind's in the right place, he could run for 1,400 yards this year, honestly.
yeah, yeah, for sure. So that brings us to High Life. Um, and so I'm not sure really what to make out of High Life's team as yet. Um, I just felt that he could have done better with all the extra picks he had. You know,
Yeah,
he just had, you know, just a lot of people I feel like he could have done better with. The Debo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey, he's got two guys in the same team. I mean, like Drake London, I like, but Drake London's in a running offense. Dallas Goddard, I like, but he's on a multifaceted offense. DeAndre Hopkins, I like, but he's older. I feel like there's just some parts where he could have done a little bit better, and maybe I think what he has to work on is maybe a thicker notebook for next year. I'm not sure that he might need to add a few more tabs and a few more
yeah.
pages to get it right.
Yeah, I thought the binder looked a little thinner this year than last year, and I think that probably hurt him a little bit. Um, but overall, look, his extra picks helped give him some freedom to take some risks. I do like the Khalil Herbert pick. I think that's it comes with risk, but he's going to be toting the rock as the RB1 in Chicago, and when he filled in the past couple of years, he's run up for over 5 yards a carry. That could turn out great. Can he carry a full load? I don't know.
Yeah.
I do like the Nico Collins pick in round 11. That is the main receiver. And again, not a great team, but he's one of the main options there.
Right.
And so I think his team is above average, but you're right. I think he probably could have done more with some of his extra picks in the beginning rounds and made it a little bit stronger. But it's overall a good team. It looks playoff worthy to me with Josh Allen, McCaffrey, Olave, Etienne, Goddard, Debo, Drake London, Damian Pierce. I think it's a playoff bound team if barring injury.
Yeah, sure. I mean, like he's got the guys that by themselves can win games. McCaffrey, Allen, DeAndre Hopkins can win a game by himself. Debo can win a game by himself. He's got that. He's got that kind of talent, which I think you need. Like Josh Allen put up 70, 80 points a couple times, and that's a key difference when you've got a quarterback putting up 70, 80 points. That makes the rest of your team look amazing. Um,
Yeah, that's one of the great things about those top. There's 5 quarterbacks that can do that, and I believe it's Hurts, it's Allen, it's Mahomes, it's maybe Lamar could go off in that way. Maybe Trevor Lawrence. If I'm lucky, Justin Herbert once or twice.
yeah,
But after that, it gets questionable. So
sure. Looking at Roach, Roach, my opinion here was that Roach's team would have been a fantastic team 3 years ago, and I feel like AJ Brown, Derrick Henry, Aaron Jones, um, I just feel like those guys could have been better. Adam Thielen, like, look at this team. I'm like, it's a great team. Aaron Rodgers, it's a great team
yeah,
3 years ago. So if these guys can perform to their history, I think he's going to do great. But I feel like, they're long in the tooth overall. His
yep,
average age is a little high.
yeah. Even Thielen, I don't know if you said Thielen, but Thielen's like
Yeah,
right in there with the rest of those guys. 3 4 years ago, this team was a first place team, and
yeah,
he's kind of drafting on name recognition as opposed to kind of modern potential trend and ceiling. Um, Terry's a little bit hurt. He's already dropped his 7th round pick, Juwan Johnson, who is a sleeper tight end, who I might have to pick up because my tight end's kind of questionable and weak. But yeah, his team is great in 2018.
yeah. And I feel like he also dropped Goff, who he drafted, and his keeper, right? Goff was his keeper. I thought
Yeah,
that was a little. I mean, that's going to be a numbered top 5 offense. I
I
feel
know.
like as a keeper, um, you gotta keep him. I mean, I know he has Rogers too, but this is a point where, especially early on, we talked about keep more offensive players. You don't know who's going to get hurt. If Rogers gets hurt, you can't pick up Golf anymore because Golf's now picked up by somebody like I think Sarge. So I feel like because we drafted early, this is where you have to like pause on picking up some players or dropping players. You don't know what's going to happen. So
Yeah, he also dropped Tyler Boyd, which I didn't love that draft pick anyway. But he dropped him. That was his 10th round pick. And so yeah, he's already kind of questioning a lot of his decisions, I think, and that maybe speaks for itself as to his overall draft, you know.
Yeah. It takes us into Eric Graham. Where's he at? Where's Scorp Speed right here? So this this draft I like. This is my favorite draft of just looking through when he goes Kelsey, Higgins, Watson, Mahomes, Sanders, Moore, Judy. He picked a linebacker early. He got Marcus Jones, Desmond King, Kayshawn Nixon, guys who were punt returner, kick returners last year, who he lost to me with those
Right.
players. He kept
Right.
Pollard. I think Eric's got
Yep.
great looking hope, like all around drafts, anchored by
Yep.
Pollard and Mahomes.
Yeah, I know he's frustrated with himself for the 8th and 9th round gaffes when he picked up Okereke and Youngway Koo. Although, you know, that's when defensive players and kickers were going. I know he didn't want them specifically. He kind of made a mistake when he was looking at his rankings. But other than that little gaff, I thought Samaje Perine in the later round is going to have a great first month to the season. And he's got Pollard, and he's got some explosiveness on his team. I think this is a team, barring injury, with a lot of upside. DJ Moore even has a lot of upside. Jerry Judy sadly got hurt after the draft, but yeah, he's got a lot of guys with high ceiling. I really like his draft. I think if things go well for him and break the way they could, he's a top 3 team. If I just had to guess right now, it's just a real solid, savvy, all around draft. I told myself I wasn't going to pick Miles Sanders. I think Miles Sanders is a little bit overrated. I think his stats were a little puffed up because of the Philadelphia offensive line. I do not think he catches well. I think he's on a horrible offense. I would not have picked him unless he had dropped to like around 10 or 11 or something. I would not have picked him in round 5. I think he could have done better there. But other than that, at some of his main positions, he's got some explosiveness there. And I got to be honest with you, man, whenever you have Travis Kelce and Mahomes, you're going to be in each game, dude. You're just going to be in. You're gaining points on whoever you're playing each week there. So
Absolutely. I feel like that was you know, that's just it makes everything look better when you got those players.
yeah, and Pollard's going to go off. I do like the little rookie that they drafted. His dad works for the Cowboys. Deuce Vaughn. He's only like 5'6". But in preseason, he's looked like a little a ping pong ball, just like amazingly agile, and he's out on the waiver wire. So, but he's a lot of fun to watch. Point being, Cowboys offense is, I think it's going to be nice unless Dak just craps the bed for some reason. But it's a high powered offense, man.
Yeah,
I think Pollard's going to have he's set to have a really good top 5 finish.
So that takes us into Lenny. Speaking of being healthy, Lenny pulled a hamstring and ended up drafting 10th, which
right.
He went up the stairs and just popped the
hammy. That's tragic.
Yeah, so fortunately not for Lenny's hammy. I think he did a good job when he went like Chubb's dig, right? I like that kind of combo. Kittle Lawrence, Ayuk, CeeDee Lamb as keeper.
Yeah, I think Ayuk was one of my sleepers. I think Ayuk I know the offense spreads it around a lot, but Ayuk is a beast, man. Like, I think that's a good pick in round 5. I like it.
Yeah, and I like Deontay Johnson. For me, I couldn't take Deontay because I had George Pickens. So I like, because he's right. Number 1 option. I like James Cook out of Buffalo. He got Fitzpatrick and Myles Garrett, 2 guys that put up some points. He picked up Rashad Bateman in the 19th round. I mean,
yeah,
that's a guy.
And Quentin Johnson for LA.
Yeah, I mean, and he did pick up Dak in the 22nd round. So there you go. But I just feel like he got the most out of these last rounds with Rashad Bateman, Tyler Bass, kicker out of Buffalo. Buffalo's going to score a lot of points. Yep. I like Lenny's team. I think he's going to do well.
Yeah, everything I read about Chigo Okonkwo, the tight end, he was on my radar. Lenny knew that. But Chigo Okonkwo is an up-and-coming tight end. He could sneak easily into the top 7 at the tight end position, even though a lot of people don't know about him right now. Deontay Johnson set a weird record last year for the most catches in a season without a touchdown. That's never happened before. He had over 80 receptions, no touchdowns. There's going to be positive regression there. Their offense is going to be better, even though I don't like their offensive coordinator. But he's set to score some touchdowns. It's an all-around solid draft. Lenny drives me crazy because he always acts like he doesn't know what he's doing. He always has a solid draft. He makes about 7 ad drops through the first 10 weeks of the season and is usually in like 4th place. So Lenny's going to be fine.
So that takes us to Buck Nasty, the guy who's got the best names of all the teams out there. He's got Ramondre, Jameer, Sky, Foyesade, Roquan, Mac, Darius, Rayshawn, Frankie, Juju, Day, Tua. I mean, like, if your name is Jimmy Johns, Buck Nasty's not drafting you. You could be 2,000-yard rusher, but if your name is John Smith, sorry.
Graham, I think you're really onto something here because as I look at those names, it's cracking me up, dude.
He's going to drop Kenneth Walker before you know it. He's going to trade Kenneth Walker for somebody.
Yeah, that sounds too boring to me. Yeah. But if you look at his team, though, I think it's again really solid. I think Jahmyr Gibbs. I was coveting him. I was hoping he'd end up with me in the 4th round. He did not. Cooper Kupp, again, we've already talked about it. Ramondre, I liked him. I like Jahmyr Gibbs. I do say that I had crossed Cam Akers off my list of draftable players. I don't like that team. I think it's going to be one of the worst teams in the league. I know Cam flashed a little bit at the end of last season, but he was in the doghouse for like the first 10 weeks of last season. Couldn't do anything right. I have no idea what's going on with that team. I would not have drafted him in round 4.
I don't like Achilles injuries for explosive players. I just don't like Achilles.
No.
Yeah, it's just tough.
Nope.
But we'll say this. If you look at it, he went Cooper Kupp. He went running back, running back, running back, running back. 4 running backs. So he's going. He's as I talked about, he's zigging when we're all zagging. So we'll see how that works.
Right.
He also went linebacker, defensive back, defensive end after that. So he went defensive heavy early, which I think we talked about strategies. I think that was a mistake. I feel like you want to fill your roster with all the offensive players. I just don't think the difference between Foyesade and a mid-tier linebacker is, I mean, it's maybe 3 points, 6 points, but a running back who gets you 18 points is a big deal. But we'll see.
I know. I think, yeah, I agree. I think Sarge made a mistake in that he has a really nice wide receiver 1. In terms of wide receiver depth compared to all the other teams, I think he's the weakest, and I think it's going to hurt him because I think Hammond was on to something a couple years ago when he said that our league is a wide receiver driven league in a lot of ways. As we start 3, potentially 4 of them, I think you need to have that depth. I think Sarge is lacking there. It is interesting to me. I noticed as I looked at this draft, there is only one receiver from Kansas City that any of us drafted, and that was Sky Moore. MVS was not drafted.
I drafted Kadarius Toney.
Oh, did you? Okay. But he's injured right now. We don't know when he's coming back. Rashee Rice is out there. He's got some potential, but it's just fascinating to me that one of the best offenses in football doesn't have more, receiver firepower. It's fascinating.
It's like, it's just they just share the wealth except for Kelsey. It's Kelsey and then they share the wealth.
I mean, Sky Moore was droppable all through the season last year. We'll see if he does better. But to have that as your number 2 with Odell Beckham and a crowded wide receiver room in Baltimore, I don't know, man. I think that's a weakness for him. I think he's going to be. What's that?
Got Calvin Ridley as his keeper, but that guy hasn't played football in a year and a half.
Yeah, there's a risk there. He could be great, but I think his receivers are trouble, and I think he's on the playoff cusp, if not just missing it, just based on what I'm looking at here.
I feel like we're going to see a trade between Buck Nasty and Ham and Cheese. I bet you we see a wide receiver trade, running back trade, throw in a high linebacker, throw in Foyesade, throw in Roquan Smith, and you're going to see Buck Nasty and Ham and Cheese make a trade. That's my prediction.
I agree. It's very possible. I think he's going to need to bolster that receiver core.
So moving on to my team, we'll do your team last. Again, I looked at, for me, I was like RB1. I went to this. I went Robinson, Metcalf, Jacobs, Ingram, Pitts. So back-to-back tight ends, a little bit of risk there. Kadarius Toney, Treylon Burks, Jacoby Myers, Gabe Davis. So what I was looking at, my strategy was like get a lot of RB, second year, third year RB, or one wide receivers, and a lot of wide receiver twos. I
Yep.
feel like if teams shut down the one, the two is always there. What do you see?
Yeah, so as I look at your team, Graham, I love your running backs. I love that Josh Jacobs is back practicing now, and it looks like that little storm is over with. So to have Jacobs and Bijan as your 1 and 2 is just so solid. I like DK Metcalf and his upside. I like Pitts and Ingram was a risk because, quite frankly, Pitts could blow up this year and you might not even have a need for Ingram. We don't know. But if he doesn't, if he has another year similar to last year because they don't pass a lot, it's nice to have Ingram there. But because you went back to back tight end there, you got stuck between round 6 and 9 with, you can call them wide receiver twos, but I see potentially wide receiver threes in that group. And quite frankly, I like George Pickens better than Kadarius Toney because of injury, better than Jacoby Myers because of lack of touchdowns, better than Gabe Davis, who's a spike player. Once every 5 weeks, he goes off. It's hard to predict. To me, George Pickens, even though he's a much later than your wide receiver run, him and Treylon Burks and DK Metcalf are your top 3 receivers. That's just my opinion. So
Yeah, for sure. And
we'll see how it plays out.
I think I'm going to be hurting on the receiver part unless somebody spikes and like jumps up. So
Yep.
I got a lot of guys with I think upside, like KJ Osborne late. I already dropped Zeke.
Yep.
Jordan Love. I did also pick up. Deshaun Watson. So I'm just all upside early. So we'll see how that looks. That puts us.
Yeah, and I mean, I like. Yeah, last thing I'll say about your team, Graham, is you have a lot of. There's a lot of question marks at receiver, but there's also a lot of ceiling potential there, and I like that. I mean, I prefer that over the last team we talked about, which was a lot of floor type guys that don't have a lot of explosive potential. But if Kadarius Toney's healthy on the Kansas City Chiefs, he could go off. You know what I mean? So it's just there's some question marks, but you have a lot of high ceiling potential with those guys like Gabe Davis and even Treylon. So we'll see how it pans out, man.
That brings your team, the commissioner's team, last, Mr. Magic. Tell us about your team.
Okay, so this is how I felt after the draft. I feel like my team will be much stronger in the second portion of the season than it will the first. I think I'm going to start slow. I really am enjoying my back-to-back picks of Jonathan Taylor and Dalvin Cook, although not for maybe the first month. I don't know how this is all going to settle out. For all I know, tomorrow, halfway through Monday, Jonathan Taylor is going to be on a new NFL team. Like, I just don't know what's going to happen with him, but I felt like he was too talented a player to let go any further. The fact of the matter is I have Eckler and Waddle, Mike Williams, and I have a lot of rookies, as we already talked about, kind of filling out my roster. I think the rookies are going to hit late in the season. I think they're all talented. I took a lot of risk, man. It's a lot of ceiling risk, and I totally get that. I have a weakness at tight end, maybe. I had no idea if this rookie tight end for Buffalo is going to do anything. My team could finish in second to last place this year, or it could finish in second place. I think as I look at my team, it's the most high level of potential variance of any team after our draft. Because of all the risk I took with these running backs and the rookies. So high level of variance could be great, could be awful. But I was satisfied because I got the players that I'm excited about the players I drafted. I didn't draft anyone that I hate or I'm like, oh, I hate that I have to make this pick, but I'm going to do it anyway. I like all my guys. If we go down in flames, we go down in flames, but they all have high ceilings. One of the big risks was round 6 with Michael Thomas. I've heard nothing but good reports about his health and how he looks in preseason. He's caught the most balls of any player in the history of the league. Granted, that was 4 years ago, but hey, it's worth a shot. So I got a lot of risk, man, but I like it. I'm rolling the dice. It might pay off. We might go down in flames. I don't know.
Yeah. Almost.
I like Jahan Dotson as a keeper, though. I got to say, I'll just keep talking to myself. Jahan Dotson, I think, is in for a good year, but again, it's a lot of
Yeah.
risk. He's got a
No.
great high ceiling, but it might not go well in Washington. I just don't know. So yeah,
So I
my
think
team
that
is very volatile.
what I think the thing is with your team is you had to get Eckler because that just works well with what you got. I like Waddle. I like Taylor and Cook because I think those guys are great running backs, just that they're in questionable situations. I will say this: if your strategy was a high ceiling, you can't drop Smith and Jigba. You
Jigba.
can't
I
drop
know.
Flowers. You can't drop Addison. You have to make sure that you stick to like this is
I
my
know.
strategy. Let's not fuck it up in week 4 when I'm 0-4, 1-3. Like
I
keep
know.
like so that's the part I think about like these rookie wide receivers. They could be great and they could be great next year. That means it's a 6th round, 7th round, 8th round pick for you next year. So I think that's the part to think about with this is
Yep.
making
Yeah, I
sure
gotta. You're
your
right. I
strategy
gotta
matches
hang.
your
Yep.
play.
I gotta hang in there with it, man, because it may take a little while to fall in place and develop. But yeah, we'll see, man. We'll see. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun to watch, man. I think this is gonna be a close year. What do you think the top 3 teams after the draft were? I think EG's up there, and I think Ham and Cheese is up there with his strong, high-powered receiver core. Any others that stand out to you?
Yeah, I think that I mean Ham and Cheese and Scorp Speed because of who they drafted. I think my next favorite team out of all these is Lenny's team. I like his team. Overall, I feel like this has a lot of good, solid players, high floors,
Yep.
high ceilings. I like
Yep.
the Lawrence pick. Um, I like what he's done overall, and we also know that Lenny's draft will be Lenny's team. So there's a lot
Yep.
of I think you look at that. I mean, I'm always positive about my team. I think my team is going to be fine. I think what I look at with the draft and how my strategy with this whole thing was the draft is just such a small part of what we do.
Sure.
And like I trust my ability to like see what's happening, pay attention, pick up guys. Everyone knows I'm going to send a trade their way. So that my reputation of like a guy who will make some deals, I think is out there. So I look at myself going, okay, we all have these reputations. Um, I'm like the New York Yankees when they're in a pennant race. You're going to trade for somebody. They're going to make a trade. That's what they do. So I'm not saying my team's the Yankees. I'm just saying that I have a reputation of I'm going to make trades to make my
Yeah.
team. So
Yeah, I think trading's or not just trading, but just the ad drops based on injuries and stuff are a huge part of the season. And this is just the beginning, of building your team throughout. I will say a couple things that stood out to me about our draft, just to kind of finish this off. I found it really interesting. Miami's a good offense. No one drafted any of their running backs. No one drafted Raheem Mostert. No one drafted Jeff Wilson Jr. No one drafted A-Chain. That's interesting to me. A-Chain's their rookie running back. Who's a little injured right now, but just an explosive player. And they're talking about Miami's the main team that's interested in Jonathan Taylor. So it'll be really fascinating if he ends up there. And then I'm dealing with the RBBC that I always like to avoid. But fascinating to me that no one picked a Miami running back. Fascinating to me that no one picked Kenneth Gainwell, who's the primary third down back and 2-minute drill back for Philadelphia, because they have a crowded backfield there. We don't know who's going to go off. Is it going to be Rashad Penny? Is it going to be Swift? But we know one thing: Gainwell will be on the field every third down and on every 2-minute drill, because that's what he's done consistently, and that's a flex spot right there. He's still out there. Damian Harris for Buffalo wasn't drafted. He's a strong runner. So there's guys out there. And some rookies that I had my eyes on that just weren't. I can only get so many rookies on my team, but Jaden Reed for Green Bay. We don't know anything about Green Bay's offense. Is Jordan Love going to be able to light it up? We have no idea. But if he does, Jaden Reed's a rookie that secured the slot spot there. Jalen Hyatt, New York Giants, slot receiver rookie. These are like little guys that may flash and that are going to be picked up, but they're all just kind of floating out. Let me say one last thing. also, as I'm kind of rambling here about the draft overall, I think Roach drafted McKinnon, who is running back for Kansas City, who does a lot of the same thing that Gainwell does in Philly. That kind of third down pass catcher role because Pacheco's not really a pass catcher. McKinnon always surprises every year. I don't know how many years he's been in the league, but every year he gets picked up because he goes off sometimes and he catches a lot of balls. And so yeah, it's just fascinating to see Roach. And even though he dropped some of his draft picks, he did pick up some decent guys like
No,
this
for sure.
Jalen Warren guy who backs up Najee Harris in Pittsburgh is an much more explosive running back. We don't know how that's going to turn out. So maybe Roach knows what he's doing. He usually picks up somebody out of the 100 that he's going to pick up that's going to go off, and we'll just see which guy that is. But it's going to be fun to see how the season plays out, man.
Well, I'm excited. I'm always excited. I feel like my recommendation to everybody is the season is 15 days away. Don't drop anybody until someone gets injured. Just keep just keep your team how it is. Don't do anything crazy.
Don't panic, man.
Don't panic. So we haven't even started the week yet.
All right, man. I think that was a pretty good overview, bro. I think we covered it. I think we've said it all.
We have said it all, and we will say it again in 8 weeks when we do our mid-season, mid quarter of the season podcast, and we'll see how we're all doing.
Good stuff, dude, man. This is fun, and I wish everyone well. I hope everyone had a great week. I had a nice, refreshing week myself. And Graham, appreciate your friendship, your support, brother, and we'll talk to you soon, man.
All right, man. See you on the other side. See you guys.
Okay, man. Peace. See you guys. Bye.